The Sony ZV1 was released in late 2020. In fact, I have an unboxing right here. I'll insert it in the cards. It was marketed to vloggers as a simple mirrorless point and shoot camera. And basically what that means is that any newbie can pick up this camera and figure things out with little to no effort. In fact, this is actually my first camera that I've had as my primary camera on this channel to film all my videos since I've done that unboxing. And I've consistently used it since for all my videos going forward. So I can vouch for that. It truly is beginner friendly. Today I am filming on the Sony ZV1. That is the camera that I'm looking at here. And then over to the side here, I have the Sony ZVE10. I've just done an unboxing of the Sony ZVE10, so if you're interested in looking to see what comes inside of the box, you can also check that out in the cards above here. So enter the Sony ZVE10. This camera is basically the baby of the Sony ZV1 and the A6000 series, and it is almost a year later since the Sony ZV1 release. With the Sony ZV1, there came a lot of pros and cons with this camera. I also have 2 short videos to watch on 9 reasons to purchase or not purchase the ZV1. And if you're interested, I'll link those in the cards here. In today's video, we're going to be doing a comparison basically between the ZV1 and the ZVE10. I just want to point out as well before we get started that I am currently using the Rode Micro plugin on the ZV1 for my audio. And the audio that is coming off the ZVE10 is the internal or onboard microphone with the dead cat attached. If at any point I am going to switch between the 2 cameras, I likely will continue just using the Rode Micro Pro audio, assuming that it's fine, but I will let you know when I switch off between audio and which camera that I actually am using. I always leave timestamps in the bottom of my videos, so if you ever need to skip forward, rewind, or reference this video down the line in the future, it is there for your convenience. So let's start with the basics and get all of the features that both of these cameras have out of the way. So for starting with number 1 with the basics, both cameras obviously shoot in 4K. They shoot in beautiful 4K. We are in 2021. I'm not sure why you would not want to be shooting in 4K. As I'm filming this video right now, I am looking at 2 screens that flip open to the left side of the body of the camera, and both feature multi-angle screens, so you can position the screen however you need to for your shots. Both have skin softening effects, and there's 3 different options that you can use on the ZV1 and 3 on the ZVE10. I'm currently using, I believe on the ZV1, the lowest possible setting that you can have for the skin softening effects. I personally find that anything past the lowest setting kind of just looks too airbrushed. Both of these products use a feature called Product Showcase, which has been an amazing feature to use. What that basically means is I can pick up any object and put it in front of the camera, and it'll immediately blur me out in the background, and it'll pick up on what is in front of the screen. The moment that I take this object away, I immediately come back into focus. This is a really nice feature that was included on the ZV1 and makes bringing any object to the forefront of the screen so easy because it changes the focus so effortlessly. Most other cameras don't actually have this feature, or if they do have this feature, it just doesn't seem to work as well. There's no need to do this little background thing with your hand anymore to get your face recognition out of the screen. Bam, bam. I love it. It's fast. It's really great. To tie in with the Product Showcase feature, both of these cameras have a feature called Object Tracking. And what that basically means is that I can tap on this little screen here and it'll track any object no matter where I move the angle of the camera. Both of these cameras have facial and eye detection, eye tracking and facial detection. The Sony ZVE10, as I'm speaking into the camera right now, it actually has a little white square around one of my eyeballs, and it's kind of just moving around as my face is moving. You're not gonna be able to see that, but trust me, it's there. Both have the ability with the C1 button on the respective cameras to have an automatic defocus in the background, and that gives the nice bokeh effect. The great thing with the Sony ZVE10 is that it comes with lens attachments compared to the Sony ZV1, which does not. Both of them have a micro HDMI port, which is a nice feature if you choose to use that. Both have a nice big red button for recording in the front. The Sony ZVE10 has a bonus feature of having a nice red perimeter around the LCD screen to let you know that if you flip the screen elsewhere, that you're still in record. Both of these cameras have decent built-in microphones. This is the onboard microphone on the Sony ZV1 outdoors with no windscreen on. This is the Sony ZV1 outdoors with the windscreen on, the Rode Video Micro Pro. I think that's what it's called. This is the onboard microphone on the Sony ZVE10 outside without any windscreen on. This is the Sony ZVE10 outdoors with the Rode Video Micro Pro microphone on top with the windscreen. Both of these cameras also have capability to live stream without any additional software installation. The one issue that I'm running into right now is I believe Sony's firmware is actually not compatible with Mac OS Big Sur, which is the current operating system on any of the MacBooks. So if that is the operating system that you're running with, you're kind of out of luck on that one, but you can do live streams. We'll have to wait to see if there's an update down the line. Let's move on to the batteries. If you had watched my 9 reasons to not purchase the Sony ZV1, actually the very first thing that I said is that the battery sucks. The battery sucks on this camera. I did have to go ahead and purchase 3 additional battery sets. Actually, in the time that I have been filming this video, I've ran through 2 batteries already, and both of them are charging right now. I do have a link in the description to Amazon for a pack of 3. They're about $30 Canadian, and they work wonderful. They work great. For the Sony ZVE10, the battery that is inside of this camera is slightly larger than the ZV1, and it's also slightly smaller than the A6000 series. The battery that is in the ZVE1, while it is larger than the ZV1, it's not going to be 10,000 times better, but it is better. But it's not the best. I just want to be very clear about that. So even if you do end up buying the Sony ZVE10, it may be in your best interest to go ahead and purchase an additional set of batteries. I will also link those in the description below on Amazon if you're interested in that. The nice thing about the ZVE10 is that it actually lets you know about the percentage of the battery that remains on the camera, whereas the ZV1, it kind of just gives you those little bars like 1 through 4, and it'll let you know, and it'll flash at you when it's dying. And then finally, both of these cameras feature 3 different stabilization states. So the first one we have is off. We just don't need to have it on. The second one is standard, and the last one is active stabilization. The standard stabilization will turn the feature off and on depending on the lens attachment that you have on the Sony ZVE10. And like I mentioned before, the Sony ZV1 doesn't have any lens attachments, so that doesn't really apply there. If you do choose to use the active stabilization on either of these cameras, just know that there is a 1.4 times crop on your video. Okay, so moving on to the biggest flaw with the ZVE10 is the rolling shutter issue, stabilization issue that we have. So as we know, if we're gonna have a vlogging camera, the camera needs to be able to keep up on action shots with you. One of the issues with the ZVE10 is that it actually is using an older sensor, part of the A6000 series of the Sony cameras. And this is not necessarily as much of an issue if you're shooting in 1080p, but the camera shoots in 4K, so I'm not sure why you would wanna shoot anything less than that. If I turn too quickly with this camera, you're kind of going to get this weird jello effect in the background. I mean, it is marketed as a vlogger's camera, so if you're going to be moving around and being active like vloggers do, that might be something that you want to consider. I mean, you can stabilize and post edit, but I mean, why would you want to? It's like extra work and like, The third topic of this video is features that are included on the ZVE10 that are not included on the ZV1. Charging with USB-C. Yay! That was a minor annoyance of mine with the ZV1. The ZVE10 also has a headphone jack included on it that is not on the ZV1. That was one of the issues with the ZV1, is that if you needed to listen to your audio, if you were outdoors in a noisy environment, you couldn't really check to see the quality of the audio because you couldn't hear it. With the ZVE10, you have the ability to plug in a set of headphones, so if you were outdoors, you can test out your audio before you actually go forward and do a full shoot on something. The other thing I am going to note, this was not initially included in my notes, but as I am filming, one of the issues that I've always had with the ZV1 is how quickly it overheats. This thing will just kind of just overheat and shut down on me. It'll give you a warning, it'll save the file, but it overheats a lot. As I am recording with the Sony ZVE10, I have done about 25 minutes of straight recording, and I am only just now getting a little temperature light notifying me that the battery or the internal mechanics are getting a little bit warm inside. Within that same time though, this Sony ZV1 has shut off on me twice. The Sony ZVE10, like I had mentioned before, has the ability to change out some of the lenses. You can get as many lenses as your little heart desires, whereas with the ZV1, you cannot change out any of the lenses. What what you see is what you get with this camera. The one good-ish thing that I have with the ZV1 is that I was able to purchase a third-party wide-angle lens with this camera just because of that 1.4 times crop that it has when you're shooting in 4K. It doesn't give you as wide of a background behind you. So I've got a review on the Ulanzi wide-angle lens attachment for the Sony ZV1. It also has a macro lens attachment. I will link the review here if you're interested. It's a good review, so go ahead and check it out. Overall, if you're looking to get into content creation for the first time, either of these cameras are honestly a good bet. It honestly just depends on your budget. I think they're about $100 or so off from each other. The Sony ZV1 often is coupled in with the vlogger kit, and I know I purchased that myself for just under 1,200 Canadian. This camera, like I said, I've used for almost a year now at this point. Aside from like the 9 complaints that I put in the 9 reasons to not purchase the Sony ZV1, overall, this camera has been a phenomenal beginner's camera. If you're already a seasoned vlogger or a seasoned content creator, you might want to even just get the Sony ZVE10 as a secondary B-roll type camera, and that's because you can switch out the lenses. Keep in mind about the active stabilization and the rolling shutter issue. That is my final comparison of the Sony ZVE10 to the ZV1. Hopefully I didn't mess up any of those acronyms in there. There was so much information thrown in this video. Like I said, go ahead and check out the ZVE10 unboxing, the ZV1 unboxing, the Ulanzi wide angle lens attachment for the ZV1, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.